would say that you would, if you were working with me, and every spiritual director does things a little bit differently, you would be sitting with me about once a month for an hour, and my goal would be to listen to your story and listen to whatever you have to say and notice flashes of divinity or holiness as they come up, and to point them out to you and help you to notice them yourself.
So you said I would notice minutes of divinity, or minutes of divinity in what you said. I'm always interested in, how do you know? How do you know that's a moment of divinity? What makes that so?
Yes, if I had to say it again, I might not call it, did I call it? I must have called it, that's what you're quoting, a moment of divinity. I would say a moment of wonder, because I think it's a moment not of God making God self-manifest where God wasn't there before, but a moment of my noticing, a moment of my seeing something that I didn't see before, because the practice of spiritual direction is, and spoken in other ways, about the practice of discernment, seeing what's already there. So it's a matter of faith. My faith is that God and all of God's aspects is everywhere all the time, and what makes it seem like God comes and goes is my openness and closedness to various aspects of God. So when I realized that I could only sit in the presence of God in my director's office early on without any of my baggage, that when I felt flawed, God wasn't there, what I had to cultivate was a sense of God comforting me, a sense of God there in a non-judgmental, loving, nurturing, comforting way. And the only way to do that was to work on it every day for months, so that I could be open. I could say, here, God, here I am with all of my scars and flaws, and feel God's rachamim, God's compassion, God's love.
I think of the spiritual director sometimes as a mashpia, and a mashpia, as I've understood it, means vessel. The root word of mashpia, I'm telling you, you know, is shefa, which means flow. So it's the word that was given to us as a vessel through which spirit flows. So if there is a clean vessel, spirit can flow through the vessel. So a spiritual director as a mashpia is the vessel through which spirit flows, as I see it. But one of the things I always wonder about is, in order for spirit to flow freely, the vessel has to be fairly clean and not filled with the director's guck, right? Because if the director has guck, and you spoke about earlier my, scratches and wounds and whatever, that's not guck. But if the director has guck, the spirit can flow so freely. So how do you work on your guck?
I would modify your image.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that the spirit flows through me to the directee. I would say that there's a channel. The spirit flows to the directee, and I'm a witness. I'm trying to get out of the way. I'm trying to get out of the way. And so that it's not my stuff. I'm noticing my stuff. Like if something that the other person says causes me to yawn, or I yawn, or I'm getting sleepy, or I'm getting angry, I'm noticing it. And I'm trying to let it go and not get in the way. But I don't think I don't think of myself as the mediator. Nevertheless, your question is, I think, very relevant in a number of different ways. It's also to the question, how do you know when God is there, right?
Yes.
The only way that I or you or any directee or director knows is through the very interesting but imperfect vessel that each of us is. We receive what we receive. What I would say what the Israelites heard at Mount Sinai was, what they say they heard was more reflective of them than of God, who is ineffable and beyond all description. They encountered the transcendent, ineffable mystery, and what they came up with is, honor your parents. That tells us a lot about them. It's what they spoke, it's what they heard, it's what they heard. There was no, if it had a tape recorder at Mount Sinai, it wouldn't have picked anything up. So what they heard was their highest values. And so I think one of the jobs, and one of my jobs as a spiritual director, is to try and not impose, not be the filter through which the godliness comes to the other person, but rather to say, oh, gosh, when you said that word before, like when you say the word mother, I'm getting a charge there. Is there something there about your mother and miraculously, 9 times out of 10, they say, how did you know? Well, you know, that was one of the great wonders of my first, I don't know, 20 or 30 meetings with directees was, you know, it was usually bingo. I would be attentive. I would be an attentive listener, and I would try to get myself out of the way, and I would say, gee, I was really struck by that phrase. And they wouldn't have known that it would, but when I said it, when I reflected it back, it led to something else. It turned out to be an eliciting comment, and I think as much because they saw me as embracing and non-judgmental and interested and patient as anything else. Could have said, I could have talked about a different phrase or something. But I think you hear different things. Different directors notice different things. That's all right. When I find that when I go to my director every month, after 10 years, as soon as I enter her study and close my eyes and prayerfully, I'm seeing things that I hadn't put together or hadn't thought about all month, because that's the place where I am fully at ease. One of the places that I'm fully at ease with my spirit, and so things arise.
I wish we had 1,000 more hours. I want to ask you your thoughts about God's darkness and how you're changed by working with directees and all of the above, but we don't have 1,000 hours. So,
in the darkness, it's a long time in coming. I believe, you know, when my students ask me, where is God in this terrible moment? Or in my terrible moment, I say, God's with you. That was a revelation to me that, you know, for over 50-something years I hadn't realized, that God being there doesn't mean that God intervenes or God fixes or God changes anything, but my knowledge that, what's it, Psalm 139, that God is with me no matter how far I go, no matter how dark or light it is, that I can turn to God, is immensely helpful, because God's view of me is inevitably more benign than my own. So having God at my side is having someone who minimally is less judgmental than I am.